Welcome back to patreon.com/the Derrick Lamon Experience, one-stop shop for your gaming news. Happy Saturday if you are listening on Patreon, and happy Monday if you guys are listening on the free feeds, Spotify, Apple Music, etc., etc. I'm going to take the show elsewhere. We're going to test it out and see how this goes. So if you're listening on this other platform, welcome, and you all let me know how you feel about this, and we'll see if we can drive some numbers there as well. But anyway, quite a week in gaming, so I'm not going to take too much time. I'm just going to jump back directly in. The top story was supposed to be the PlayStation 5 Pro, but I had some other news that broke. So we're going to get to the Pro in a new segment I called Derrick Gets Serious, and we'll get to that later. So we're going to get this out of the way first. This comes from VideoGamesChronicle.com. Annapurna Interactive's entire workforce has basically walked off. This is insane. As first reported by Bloomberg earlier this afternoon, Annapurna Interactive President Nathan Gary and his team resigned following a dispute with the group's owner, Megan Ellison. Following discussions to spin the video game publishing arm out into an independent entity, of which Ellison pulled out, 24 members of staff resigned from the company. I can't fathom how the hell this could happen. All 25 members of the Annapurna Interactive team collectively resigned. Gary said in a joint statement, "This is one of the hardest decisions we have ever had to make, and we did not take this action lightly." Well, you put yourself out there. Like, either they resolve this and they go back to their positions, or a lot of people are updating their shit on Indeed. There's another story about this has been the year. People say Cat Williams opened the portal earlier this year, and he might, that might be right, because so much has happened since then. You think about the Drake and Kendrick situation. Shannon Sharp went on live and was busting something down, and all these other things that have happened, and now we have a situation like this. And then in gaming, it's been the year of the layoff. And do we even consider this current generation a new generational leap? I think the PlayStation, the PS5 DualSense is actually the greatest controller ever made. But other than that, what else feels next gen? But again, we will get to that in a second. Annapurna Interactive is known for critically acclaimed games from small teams such as Outer Wilds, Stray, and Cocoon. They did that one game, I think it's called 12 Seconds or 12 Minutes or something like that. It was like I think they published that. I don't think they developed it. I think they published it, but I love that game. It was really, really cool. As reported by GameIndustry.biz, Annapurna has been looking to more closely integrate games with its TV and film divisions, and has rehired co-founder Hector Sanchez from Epic Games as president of Interactive and New Media. Quote, "Our top priority is to continue supporting our developer and publishing partners during this transition," Ellison said in a statement to Bloomberg News. "We're committed to not only our existing slate of games, but also expanding our presence in the interactive space as we continue to look for opportunities to take a more integrated approach to linear and interactive storytelling across film and TV, gaming, and theater." A spokesperson told Bloomberg that all existing Annapurna projects will continue under the brand. You don't have any developers. I don't know how that works. Remedy recently announced that Annapurna Pictures will be co-financing Control 2 and bringing Remedy IP to TV and movies. Explaining the deal, communicator director Thomas Pua said, quote, above all it means Remedy is able to make Control 2 exactly the game we want it to be, while we now also have an incredible partner to extend our IPs to other mediums. Pua also announced that Remedy will still be publishing Control 2 itself despite Annapurna's game publishing arm. I don't understand how that deal works. Three things. I'm usually right about things when it comes to stuff like this. Years ago, I said that the Pac-12 should have given consideration to San Diego State, Fresno State, and Boise State. And then when USC and UCLA announced their intention to depart the Pac-12 for the Big Ten, I was like, this is the perfect time to make that call. And they didn't think about that. And then guess what? Washington and Oregon pulled out. Colorado goes back to the Big 12. Arizona State, all these teams pull out. Cal and Stanford go to the ACC, which makes no sense. And then the only thing that's left in the Pac-12 is Washington State and Oregon State. And then the day that I'm recording this, I wake up and it's like, well, the Pac-12 has extended invitations to Fresno State, San Diego State, Colorado State, and Boise State. And I'm like, I said you should have made that call a couple years ago. And now we're still not going back to a Power Five. It's going to be Power Four, and then five. It's going to be Group of Six conferences because the Pac-12 will no longer be considered a Power Five conference. But that has nothing to do with gaming, unless you're talking about EA Sports College Football 25, which is a great game. Um, to spin it back around, again, I'm usually right about these things. I don't know why Sony, like, I understand why they did not acquire Quantic Dream. Detroit Become Human is a phenomenal game, and it got rave reviews, and it was only available. Console exclusivity is with the PlayStation, right? Now, I'm pretty sure it's on PC at this point, and Sony may own the IP, I'm not sure, but we all thought it's like, well, Sony's clearly going to acquire Quantic Dream. And then we found out about all the crazy shit they were doing over there at Quantic Dream, like posting nude photos on people's cubicles and shit like that, and randomly showing people porn and stuff like that. And it's like, well, Sony can't touch them with a 10-foot fucking pole right now because the optics would look terrible, right? I don't know why Sony has not made a move to acquire Remedy, because Remedy, like, I don't know how the IP works with Max Payne and Max Payne 2. Rockstar owned the IP of Max Payne 3. That's a whole other issue. But Remedy can't seem... They have to keep... Like, each game, they're reaching out to somebody to publish. Alan Wake 2 was published by Epic Games. Right? Like, you have to figure this out. So at this point, it's like... We know they make quality content. I don't know, like, you have to, if I'm Sony, I'd have kicked those tires around before I started looking into Bungie, because Bungie clearly mismanaged the situation. They lied about their standing, and then Sony got them in there, and they're like, hey, could you take a look at some of our games as a service IP? And then Bungie's like, sure. And then they see, The Last of Us Online, they're like, it looks good, you're not going to make any money off of it, right? And Sony's like, shut this shit down. And then they send Naughty Dog out there to basically perform their own funeral for that game. They're like, yeah, we could have done this, but we would have had to have pivoted to being an online studio. And that's just not what Naughty Dog does. And I'm like, bullshit. Y'all knew when y'all started developing that game that you were going to have to support it with post-launch content, right? So somebody knew that. I think that they basically served themselves a big fucking shit burger, and now... they're trying to pick up the pieces. I always said 12 live service games was way too fucking much. Fortnite is an anomaly. That was not supposed to happen. And we've seen it filter down to everybody's doing these battle passes and shit like that. It didn't work for Suicide Squad, and it's basically bricked fucking Rocksteady, and Rocksteady's one of the best developers of the last 20 years. But now they're fucked because they made a bad game that nobody really wanted. So again, back to Remedy, I'm just like... You guys, you're making quality titles, but you still have to strike these deals to publish these games through other people. And I'm looking at Sony like, you spent I think they spent $3 billion to acquire Bungie. And I'm like, you probably could have got Remedy for less than that. You probably could have, and you would have got better product. You clearly would have got better product. As far as Annapurna, I have no idea what, this is insane. I'll follow up on the story when more information becomes available. I haven't talked to anybody. I don't really know anybody that works with Annapurna or anything like that. I've talked to a few people in Discord and online and stuff like that, and everybody was just as blown away. We're all just like, wait a minute, whoa. And the one person I know who kind of has the inside track on stuff like that, he's like, I'm as surprised as you are. I'm just as fucking surprised as you are. But if I hear anything, I'll let you know. Shout out to Mikey. So yeah, this is very strange. They're like, we're still committed. And it's like, yeah, but you don't have a development team. No devs are walking away from their jobs right now because the situation is so dire. SAG-AFTRA is going to strike now for better compensation and things like that for voice actors in video games. And we're already at a point where now all these fucking major titles have 7-year develop periods. The last brand new IP, well, not brand new IP, but the last brand new game we got from Rockstar was in 2020 at basically the height of the pandemic when we got The Last of Us Part 2. Since then, they've done Uncharted Legacy of Thieves collection, which is Lost Legacy and Uncharted 4, and they did that for the PlayStation 5. Then we got The Last of Us Part 1 completely remade for the PlayStation 5. And then last year, or top of this year, we got The Last of Us Part 2 director's cut for the PlayStation 5. In the PlayStation 3 generation alone, Naughty Dog did the first 3 Uncharted games and The Last of Us. PlayStation 3 released in 2006. PlayStation 4 came out November of 2013. So that's a 7-year period where one studio put out 4 games. So how Annapurna thinks they're just going to spin the block and be like, no, we're good, we got this. That's not going to happen. That just is not going to happen. And I want you all to understand this. Like, hear me and hear me well. This is going to be a colossal issue for their game development arm of Annapurna Interactive. You know, I don't know if it affects the company in totality, but they're not just like, everybody's like, no, Sony's going to put Concord back online. No, they're not. No, they're not. I'm going to tell you this, and then we'll move off of this and move on to something else. If you tie the open beta to your game, which means it's not really open because it's hidden behind a paywall. You have to pre-order the game to get access to the beta. When you look up and then they turn around and give everybody access to the beta, that's an abject failure. They had to do that because not enough people pre-ordered that game to play the beta to fill the lobbies for people to test it out. Sony opened up that beta to everybody within like 3 days. And then 2 weeks from the release, the game is completely wiped off the PlayStation servers. If you hadn't gotten the platinum in it, sorry for you. You can't now. And they're like, no, they're going to figure it out. They're going to make it free to play. They're going to bring it back. That's not happening. That is not happening. That game was in development for 8 years. I don't know what the fuck Jim Ryan saw when he went to Firewalk Studios for him to be like, this looks like a good idea. And it furthers the conversation about people being like, no, Jim Ryan didn't retire. Sony forced him out. You can't pivot. You cannot pivot the way that they did. The PlayStation 4 generation, which is by some called the greatest generation in gaming, was known for one thing: single player, narrative driven, bonkers Hollywood experiences. The Last of Us Remastered, Last of Us Part 2, Ghost of Tsushima, what else? God of War, Horizon Zero Dawn, Detroit Become Human. Like, if I just pulled out, like, if I turned on my PlayStation and went through my library, like, most of the games that I have are from the PlayStation 4 generation. It is, like, universally thought to be the greatest generation of gaming on one console. And then you say, with all that good faith, after you had to dig yourself out of a hole, because make no mistake about it, and we're going to talk about price later, when Sony announced that there would be 2 SKUs for the PlayStation 3, and one was $500 and one was $600, everybody's like, wait, what? And remember, this is 2006. This is 2006. And then for them to get on stage and say, well, if you really want it, you'll get another job. There was so much bad faith. And then the fact that developers did not like working with the hardware. That proprietary cell that they built in conjunction with IBM and Toshiba, everybody hated it. And that's why there is no true backwards compatibility with the PlayStation 3 other than streaming through PlayStation Plus, which used to be PlayStation Now. They had to learn their lesson. Now, to their credit, because Microsoft fucked up and the Xbox 360 had the red ring of death, Sony was able to kind of spin the block, and then by the end, they sold 89 million PlayStation 3s, which is that's an accomplishment. That's a feat within itself. And they still outsold the 360, which had a universal lead. Like, the 360 was part of pop culture during its time as Microsoft's marquee console. It was part of pop culture. And people who were seriously just entrenched in their Xbox fandom, they talk about the 360 the way, like, old people talk about 70s soul music, or like if you're a rock and roll fan, about how the Beatles and the Rolling Stones, they're pure rock and roll, and the 80s hair metal and all that's a bunch of bullshit. Like, people don't understand that, right? So Sony, with the PlayStation 4, they were able to gain market share back because Microsoft went up there and colossally fucked up. at E3 2013. You can't show me a gaming console and talk about TV, and then talk about DRM and always online and all that shit. Don Metric should have. Never mind. I'm not gonna say anything. But Microsoft's been climbing out of that hole ever since June of 2013, and every time you think that they're going to get their head above the water, they get shoved back down because they make horrible fucking business decisions, just really, really fucking bad. So, I would go as far as to say, and this is just speculation, 3 years from now, there will be no games division of Annapurna Interactive. I'm giving them 3 years to figure this out. And I'm sorry, people aren't giving up jobs in gaming right now because major publishers, major studios have had to lay people off. And since we're at that point, let's just go ahead and get there. This story also coming from VideoGamesChronicle.com. Microsoft is cutting another 650 staff from its gaming teams. We're at that point. Phil Spencer claims no games, devices, or experiences will be canceled as a result of the cuts. This is very interesting. As first reported by GameFile, Microsoft's head of gaming, Phil Spencer, shared the news with employees in a company-wide email on Thursday. That's really shitty. To do it over an email? Like, I got laid off once. The whole department did, and they pulled us all together. We knew when we got in that morning we couldn't get into ADP to clock in. The rumors started flying. They pulled us all together in the middle of our department and laid us off. To do it in an email, it's kind of a cowardly way, but it's none of my business. Quote, as part of aligning our post-acquisition team structure and managing our business, we have made a decision to eliminate approximately 650 roles across Microsoft Gaming, mostly corporate and supporting functions to organize our business for long-term success, Spencer wrote. Remember when the Bethesda ZeniMax acquisition happened, and then we find out they're trying to acquire Activision Blizzard King, and everybody's like, this is good for gaming, and I'm like, this is a consolidation of assets, and this is bad. This is bad. The FTC and all these other, trade commissions around the world stepped in and said, wait one fucking minute, you can't do this. This is a monopoly. At its core and at its fucking base, this makes you a monopoly. You can't do this. And everybody's like, you guys are just haters and you don't want to see Microsoft win and fuck PlayStation and fuck Nintendo. And it's like, bro, this is consolidation. This is not good. And you're going to see what I'm talking about. And here we are, the lasting effects. Game Pass has increased in price twice over the last calendar year. And now day and date is only allotted to Game Pass Ultimate subscribers. Now, I'm a Game Pass Ultimate subscriber because I have my Xboxes, I have my PC, I have my iPad, I have my phone and all that stuff, so I can play games anywhere. That's why I subscribe to Game Pass Ultimate. That's why. But everybody who wanted day and date, you can only get it on Ultimate now. So everybody who's like, I'm going to play Call of Duty for free. Yeah, if you're on Game Pass Ultimate, which is now $20 a month. It was $16 when the acquisition was nearly completed around this time last year. It is now $20. And everybody said this was a good idea. Now, 650 more people are losing their jobs in Microsoft's gaming division. You tell me how that's good. Please explain to me how that's good. And this acquisition was supposed to be for the betterment of gaming, right? Isn't that what you said? Story goes on to say, Phil says actually, quote, throughout our team's history, we have had great moments and we've had challenging ones. Today is one of the challenging days. I know that going through more changes like this is hard, but even in the most trying times, this team has been able to come together and show one another care and kindness as we work to continue delivering for our players. Spencer claimed that the cuts would result in cancellation of no games, devices, or experiences. This is insane. I know this news is difficult to hear. We are deeply grateful for the contributions of our colleagues who are learning they are impacted. In the U.S., we're supporting them with exit packages that include severance, extended health care, and outplacement services to help with their transition. Outside the U.S., packages will differ from according to location. Isn't it funny how the news can change things in a day? Because I'm recording this on Thursday evening. The discourse this week had been about the price of said unit that we will be talking about a little later. And Microsoft, the super duper fandom Xbox people were like, Sony's fucking you guys. I told you, blah 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 blah. Microsoft will never do it. And here you are. Here you are. And my favorite saying, because Satya Nadella and the investors of Microsoft gave Phil Spencer a blank check and he went out and spent $80 billion acquiring Bethesda ZeniMax and Activision Blizzard King, now games that should have been exclusive to the Xbox ecosystem are now going to PlayStation 5. You have no idea how salty some of those people were at Gamescom, when that announcement came across the screen that Indiana Jones and the Great Circle will be coming to PlayStation 5 next spring. Wow. Right? Phil also said, with these changes, our corporate and supporting teams and resources are aligned for sustainable future growth and can better support our studio teams and business units with programs and resources that can scale to meet their needs. Separately, as part of running the business, there are some impacts to the other teams as they adapt to shifting priorities and manage the life cycle of performance of games. No games, devices, or experiences are being canceled, and no studios are being closed as part of these adjustments today. Throughout our team's history, we already got to that point. Now, this means Xbox has now cut more than 2,500 jobs since it completed its $69 billion acquisition of Activision Blizzard. 2,500 people have lost their job because they told you that there was no issue with Microsoft acquiring Activision Blizzard. The FTC was right. The UEC, I believe it's called in Europe, they were right. Everybody saw this. But when Jim Ryan went up to court and was like, well, there's no competitor to Call of Duty in the gaming landscape, and this would allow Microsoft to try to take Sony off the board, and everybody was like, Jim Ryan's a hater, right? Now, Ryan, I'm not a fan. That live service thing was a bunch of bullshit, and anybody who is a dedicated member of the PlayStation ecosystem knows what we want, and that's why we have a PlayStation, right? Like, you have to be smarter than that. Jim Ryan was right when he went into court and spoke on the behalf of the PlayStation. And when Nintendo's like, oh, Microsoft's doing us a solid because now we're going to get Call of Duty on the Switch and other Nintendo hardware going forward. And then the emails leak because guess what? When you go to court with the FTC, they want to see documentation. They want to know what's been going on behind closed doors. And then all these emails come out where Microsoft is basically shitting on people and basically saying, yeah, Nintendo won't exist unless they allow us to acquire them. Yeah, we should acquire Sega too. They're not a fucking monolith. They want it to be a monopoly. As if they don't have... Microsoft is the richest corporation on the globe. I don't care whose house you go to or what school you go to. Now, some schools and some people, I have Macs and I have a PC, right? It doesn't matter. You go and open somebody's laptop or move the mouse and their screensaver comes up on their desktop. It's like 87% of all personal computers around the world use Windows as an operating system. There's like 8 fucking people per capita in the United States that use Linux. Very few. It's the world's most profitable fucking company. So did Microsoft really need this? No, it was Phil Spencer and his ego. He felt like he could do anything because I have to give credit where credit is due. Microsoft was in a very, very shitty situation after Don Metric took the stage at E3 2013. And you have to give credit to Phil for turning it around. But Phil does some dumb fucking shit too. Right? That's just the long and short of it. It's not a monolith. He wanted to be a fucking monopoly. And the fact of the matter is, those are inner office emails. He didn't think anybody would see them, and then the world was able to see them because you guys thought that you were just gonna walk in there with a check for $69 billion and say, we're gonna buy you and everything is gonna be all good. But wait a minute, we just bought another publisher about a year ago. And then the FTC and everybody else perks up like, there's something strange going on over at Microsoft. Microsoft's head of gaming announced in January that 1,900 staff will be laid off across Activision Blizzard, Bethesda, and Xbox. At the time, Phil Spencer claimed that the decision to cut the jobs was ultimately the result of a lack of growth in the games industry. I would say that's partially correct. I would say that's partially correct. You actually no, that's more than partially correct. Again, everybody's chasing lightning in a bottle. Fortnite is an anomaly. That is not supposed to happen. That is not supposed to happen. That was not supposed to happen. The same way I could say technically Drake is almost an anomaly. A rapper from Canada who also sings and initially talked about his feelings was not supposed to be this successful. Just saying. As part of the previous cuts, Xbox closed Hi-Fi Rush developer Tango Gameworks and Redfall Studio in Arcane Austin. Tango Gameworks was acquired by somebody else last month, and those people are getting back to work. And they did acquire the Hi-Fi Rush IP from Microsoft, if I remember correctly, so there should be more coming there. The news followed just a year on from Microsoft's previous round of layoffs, which partially affected its gaming teams. In January of 23, it confirmed plans to lay off approximately 10,000 employees, or around 4.5% of the U.S. technology giant's 220,000 person workforce. The broader games industry has continued to see widespread layoffs, which began to accelerate in 2023 and have continued throughout 2024 with no sign of stopping. Game developer Farhan Noor, who has been tracking job cuts dating back to the start of 2022 on videogamelayoffs.com, estimates that around 10,500 games industry employees were laid off last year, and that around 11,540 have already been laid off this year so far. And keep in mind, it is only September, so this is not a good look. I send my prayers out to the people affected by the cuts over at Microsoft. This is absolutely disgusting. And it's not just the thing of it is this is not Microsoft as a whole. This is the Microsoft gaming division, Xbox, and all Bethesda, ZeniMax, Activision. Nobody's getting. I mean, somebody could have got laid off who works in the Surface team. I don't know. I would assume that Windows 12 is in R&D right now. Somebody could have been laid off on that team. I don't know. But specifically, we are talking about Microsoft Gaming. That's who's being laid off. So, again, prayers and thoughts to all of those who unfortunately woke up this morning and went to work and found this out. Because that's a shitty, shitty thing to happen. That's a shitty thing. So, mentioned Sony earlier. Again, there's more to talk about them, but on the PlayStation.blog, the PS5 system update adds Welcome Hub, Party Share, personalized 3D audio profiles, adaptive controller charging, and more. They just added the the PlayStation accessory apps to the PC, I think 2 weeks ago. So you can, if you have a DualSense Edge or just a DualSense, you can tweak it a little bit if you're using it with your PC, which I did. Again, I'm recording this on Thursday evening, and the update dropped today. I came in, I ate, I sat down, and I relaxed for quite, maybe 30 minutes, and then I got down to business here. So I've not turned on my PlayStation 5 to check out the update, but I've seen, pictures online and stuff like that. So Welcome Hub, a new personalized space on the PS5 home screen, will roll out gradually across regions. Today, we're happy to announce a new PS5 system software update that introduces a number of new features, including Welcome Hub, personalized space with customizable widgets and backgrounds in your PS5 home screen. Welcome Hub is a reimagined version of the Explore tab, which was previously only available in the U.S. It will roll out globally over the next few weeks, starting today for select players in the U.S. Party Share, the ability to share party voice chat links on messaging and social media apps, will roll out globally in the coming weeks. So if you're a Facebook user, which I don't know why you would be, but that's neither here nor there, and it's none of my business. If you were starting a party on PlayStation Online, you could share the link on Facebook, and then people who you were friends with on Facebook or whatever, they could then jump in the party, as long as you did make the party private, or Twitter or Instagram DMs or whatever, or I guess TikTok. I don't fucking know how that works anyway. Additionally, thanks for support from our beta participants, the following features that were tested in our latest PS5 beta will be released globally starting today. Personalized 3D audio profiles for headphones and earbuds, which I plan on personalizing mine for my PlayStation Gold headset. Adjust remote play settings per user and choose who is allowed to connect to your PS5 console using remote play. Nobody's connecting to either of my PlayStation 5s outside of me, because I'm the owner. Adaptive charging for your controller is available for slimmer PS5 model and PS5 Pro when it's available. So this is not on the launch PlayStation 5. It's only available on the Slim, and the PS5 Pro does not come out till November 7th. Again, we will be talking about that just a little later. Aside from adaptive charging for controllers, all PS5 system updates feature mentioned in this blog post are available for all PS5 models. Let's see. And they have videos and stuff on the PlayStation blog. You can check it out. Oh, you can change your background from like screenshots that you've taken in the game. Finally. I don't know why. The fact that themes were available on PlayStation 3 and then PlayStation 4, they should have been day one on PlayStation 5, or at least the ability to use a background image. They've got like Uncharted, and they've got a shot of Abby and Owen looking out over Jackson at the beginning of The Last of Us Part 2. And then there's a shot of, I want to say, who is that? Oh, that's Nathan and Sam in Uncharted 4, and there's Sully and Sam in Uncharted 4, and that is Chloe and Elena in Uncharted Lost Legacy, and of course that's Gran Turismo 7. So, you know, there's still Sony's using Flickr. That's hilarious. The party share thing we talked about, and they show it running like on a smartphone. This is kind of cool. So, you know. And personalized 3D audio, I'll definitely be setting this up. This is really cool. Enable remote play. If you have a PlayStation Portal, obviously you can do remote play from your console to your Portal. You can also do remote play to an iPad, and you can do it. You can do it to a PC and a Mac. Yeah, because I have the PlayStation Remote app on my Mac and my PC. So yeah, you can do it there too. So if you have a PlayStation 5, you know, I urge you to go in and check out the update if you already haven't. Kind of get in there, mess around. If you've got a really good headset, especially a Sony authorized or PlayStation first party headset, and it's 3D audio, I would say go ahead, get in there and mess around with the spatial audio and stuff like that. Speaking of PlayStation, former PlayStation EU boss says devs made redundant should get over it and go to the beach for a year. Chris Deering says he's optimistic the games industry will recover. I am. This is a reset, just like in the 80s when Atari flopped and it was hard for Nintendo to get into stores. And then once it did get into stores and word of mouth spread about Super Mario Brothers and all these other games, Nintendo owned the gaming landscape, and Sega had to basically force themselves in the stores as well. And gaming has only climbed since then, and now we're in a bit of a recession for gaming. And a lot of people don't understand this, and I'm like, the writing's on the wall. All these people keep losing their jobs. We're talking about we're in current gen, but you know, everybody's like, it's next gen hardware. I'm like, it's not next gen, it's current gen, because the Xbox Series consoles and the PlayStation 5 have both been out. It'll be 4 years in November. This is the current generation. We're at the point where we're not going to see any more graphical leaps. We're near photorealistic at this point. Lighting and stuff like that. Games loading in faster textures, better performance, ray tracing, HDR. Those are new or next gen features at this point. Because games looked really fucking good on the PlayStation 4 and some Xbox games as well. But the industry is in a recession, and this is a video game crash, but it's not going to crash like it did with Atari, because there's far too much money in gaming right now. There's far too much money. Anyway, in the latest episode of journalist Simon Parker's My Perfect Console podcast, Deering, who was president of Sony Computer Entertainment Europe from 1995 to 2005 and president of Codemasters from 2006 to 2010, was asked about the current trend of layoffs across the industry. Deering replied that the layoffs were just part of business and it wasn't fair to say that they weren't driven by greed. He's got a point there. He does have a point there. I can't say he doesn't. Quote, I don't think it's fair to say the resulting layoffs have been greed, Deering said. I always tried to minimize the speed with which we added staff because I always knew there would be a cycle and I didn't want to end up having the same problem that Sony did in electronics. You add staff, you especially add QA staff when you're doing testing. When you feel like the game has been written, you've done the mocap, voice recording has been done and all that stuff, right? Now, the dev teams, the level team, and like the boss fight team, they all have to get together and put this game together in conjunction with the code team. And then the QA, the testers, they're going to play the game and they're going to tell you, hey, there's an issue at this exact moment, or there's an issue on this level, and then the devs go in and they fix the bugs. A lot of QA staff sometimes are contracted workers, and they understand that once the game is finished and it goes gold, you're probably done. Unless if there's a day one patch and they want you to test that before you walk out the door, that's possible. But you have to go in with the understanding that I may only be here, you know, I don't know where they are. I don't know where Insomniac is with the development of Wolverine right now. I don't think they're at the point where they've got QA testing the game, because we haven't seen anything from that game other than the trailer at the PlayStation Showcase in September of 21 and what we saw in the Insomniac leak last year around this time. Or actually early. Was it early this year or was it late last year? That was a really dark time for me, so I can't remember. But I seriously doubt that they have QA testers inside of Insomniac right now. We don't know when Wolverine is coming. We just don't. We don't fucking know. He goes on to say, now, of course, there was just a recently big layoff of Sony Studios in London, but that whole studio setup has been run out of Amsterdam now for a few years, and I don't know if the money isn't coming in from the consumers on the last game, it's going to be hard to justify spending the money for the next game, which is true. The games exec, who is currently an advisor to various company boards, then suggested that developers being made redundant would eventually be able to get back into business, but that they would have to sit on the sidelines for a while. Quote, I think it's probably very painful for the managers, but I don't think that having skills in this area is going to be a lifetime poverty or limitation, he said. It's still where the action is. It's like the pandemic, but you know you're going to have to take a few, figure out how to get through it, drive an Uber or whatever, go off, find a cheap place to live, and go to the beach for a year. I would not recommend the beach thing, but Uber, Lyft, DoorDash, you know, whatever you got to do. But also keep up with your news and keep up with it, because once you get off the train, it's much harder. But I'm optimistic about the future, even for people that have just recently been laid off. These things do recover sometimes a lot faster than you might think, when all is very precarious. I presume people were paid some kind of decent severance package, and by the time that runs out, well, you know, that's life. Don't go racing for a lifeboat when you're getting to the end of your severance package money. You need to find a lifeboat before then. Just saying. He added, I always say what's really exciting about the industry is that you never really have the chance to get depressed. What you have to do is things jump out in front of you and you deal with them just like in a game. So get over it. That's very blunt. I've seen pictures of Derrick, and look, I don't want to label the dude, but he looks like a boomer. I'm just being completely honest. And the way that they view things is a lot different than obviously millennials and Gen Z and stuff like that, but like just the common American. I'm 42 years old, and I still think that's kind of fucking blunt to say. I think you have to, like, he's not looking for a job in gaming, so he doesn't care to censor his thoughts and filter them before they come out of his mouth. Now, if I was looking for a job in gaming, which I'm still available, and somebody kind of put me in touch with somebody, a rep from Sony, about getting a certain piece of hardware. But again, we'll get to that when we get to that. Anyway, I'm going to filter things from my brain through my fucking vocal cords before they come out of my mouth. I just wouldn't say it like this, but again, he doesn't care because he's not looking for a job in gaming. He's already consulting on various boards of other companies, like, and we'll never get the list of companies, but some of your favorite games that are in development are already out. He's probably, you know, taking a look at them on the back end. That's, I don't know. He says, really, that's the excitement of the industry. That shit like this happens, and it's very sad, but it's not going to be forever. And, you know, come on, guys, wake up. This is not the first time. Again, the game industry has continued to see widespread layoffs, which began to accelerate in 2023 and have continued throughout 2024 with no sign of stoppings. Game developer Farhan Noor, who has been tracking job cuts dating back to the start of 22, again on videogameslayoffs.com. We already gave you that numbers. Earlier this year, Deering's former employee, Sony Interactive Entertainment, announced it would reduce its overall headcount by about 8%, or about 900 people. Layoffs included the entire closure of PlayStation London studio. I'm trying to think of the last game London studio put out. Japan studio closing was the real heartbreaker. But Team Asobi, who has the highest rated game of the year in Astrobot, is basically comprised of the ex-staff of Japan studio, so it's okay. But, you know, it is what it is. I don't know. I want to push this, and then we'll get, yeah, we're going to go here. Konami has confirmed that MGS Master Collection Volume 2 is considering how to handle the really big titles. It's going to be a little while before we get a clear picture, says Konami producer. I was hoping they were coming sooner rather than later. I have Metal Gear Solid 5 Ground Zeroes and Metal Gear Solid 5 Phantom Pain on PlayStation and Xbox, and I'm probably going to buy the PC port as well, because that's how I am about something that I really, really love. If I find a piece of art and it's available in several mediums, I have Dr. Dre's The Chronic on the iTunes version, the CD, and the vinyl. I have Drake's Take Care, iTunes, CD, vinyl. Kanye, My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy, iTunes, CD, vinyl. Jay-Z's The Black Album, same thing. Watch the Throne, same thing. Red Dead Redemption, PlayStation, Xbox, PC. Final Fantasy VII, I've probably bought that game like 10 times across various platforms. If I believe in a specific piece of art, I will invest in it every time I can find it. Just telling you that right now. So yeah, I've already got Ground Zeroes and Phantom Pain. Does that mean I'm not going to buy them again? Fuck no. You guys know me better than that. Come on now. I love Metal Gear Solid. I do need Guns of the Patriots, Metal Gear Solid 4, so I'm waiting on this, because I don't have my launch PlayStation 3. It was stolen. Anyway, this also is from VideoGamesChronicle.com. During the second episode of Konami's Metal Gear Production Hotline series of live shows, series producer Noriaki Akamura was asked what was happening with regards to the second part of the compilation series, which began last year with Metal Gear Solid Master Collection Volume 1. We had HD ports of Metal Gear Solid 1, 2, and 3, or sorry, not really for one, but the other two. Most of the titles released after those don't have a pre-existing HD port we could use. I didn't buy this because I'm not really that big on MGS 1 and 2. It's okay, but I also have the Metal Gear Solid HD collection, so I'm like, maybe I don't need this. But the second part of this series, I need this. For Guns of the Patriots, if nothing else. Because I don't think it's on PlayStation Plus, and that's the thing that really, really pisses me off. But if they add it to PlayStation Plus, I don't know. But more than likely, they won't. Actually, it's not even more than likely. They're not going to, because Konami can make more money selling the game back to us than taking a check from Sony to put it in PlayStation Plus. So that's how the game goes. Subscription services, right? Music, television, film, everything's a fucking subscription service at this point. And you idiots let them do it because you're like, cut the cord, it's cheaper. Streaming is much cheaper than cable. Yeah, when you add up all the streaming services you have to watch the shit you want, you're paying a cable bill twice over. Remember I told you that a few years back. Anyway, some are in HD, but those would all be really big titles. That comes with its own set of issues. So with all these factors considered with the lineup, anything along the lines of what's in it or questions like how long will it be in development, when it'll be out, is going to be a little while until we can get a clear picture. But when we do, we'll let you know here. This upsets me because if we don't yet have a release date for Metal Gear Solid Delta 3, Metal Gear Solid Delta Snake Eater, you have to have something to tide the people over until we get that game. The second volume in the series should have been in R&D before the first volume went gold for actual launch. And this is why Konami pisses me off, because I don't know what happened between them and Hideo Kojima, but to erase that man's legacy is absolutely disgusting. To not allow him to even come on the stage and accept the award when Phantom Pain, did Phantom Pain win Game of the Year? I don't remember. Phantom Pain won a game at the Game Awards and Konami would not even allow Kojima to come on stage with them. That's disgusting. Metal Gear Solid is nothing without Hideo Kojima. I want you to know that. He is a master at what he does. He turned video games into an art form on the lines of film. Metal Gear Solid 3 is the best non-Bond film, but it's a video game. So with Konami, not only are they sitting on the Metal Gear IP, they're also sitting on the Castlevania IP. And Contra. Like, somebody's got to figure this out. They're over there making fucking pachinko machines in Japan. Sell the IPs. I'm sure Sony would like to have them. But they do have Silent Hill coming out The Silent Hill 2 remake is coming within like it's coming in October. I know that. Anyway, we called the first volume 1, so we're making a volume 2. That is much for sure. We're also worried about how volume 1 had a pretty rough launch with all the issues, so we're going to do everything we can not to repeat that, but we just have to ask for everyone to give us time. I just realized this. It really just dawned on me that they can't pull this off. They can't pull it off without the help of Sony. Because Peace Walker was on the PSP, if I'm not mistaken. Hold on. Let me do my research before I start talking out the side of my neck. They're not going to be... Yeah, they can't do this without the help of Sony. It is not possible. And the reason for that is... Guns of the Patriots is a PlayStation 3 game, and it was exclusive to the PlayStation 3. Peace Walker is a PlayStation Portable game. Yeah, they need Sony's help to pull this off. And again, that goes back to the fact that Guns of the Patriots was exclusive to the PlayStation 3. If you remember earlier in the show where I talked about how developers hated the PlayStation 3 because of that chip that basically was the GPU and all that stuff that was created by Toshiba and IBM in conjunction with Sony. Developers hated that. So it's not, they just can't go in and grab the code and like, hey, now we can do it for PS5 and Xbox and PC. It doesn't work like that. That's just not how it's going to work. So they're in a bit of a fucking situation trying to figure this out. And now I get it. Now I get why they say, hey, it's going to take some time because this can't be done. I think Ken Kutaragi was head of architecture for the PlayStation 3, if I'm not mistaken. Because Mark Cerny did the PS4, the PS Vita, and the PS5, and now the PS5 Pro, which again I promise we'll be getting to in just a second. I don't know what Ken Kutaragi's even doing these days. They're in a bit of this is a precarious situation, if nothing more. So yeah, it could be a while before we get Volume 2. So just take the check from Sony and put it on PlayStation Plus is all I'm saying. Anyway, currently, Metal Gear Solid 5 is playable on modern platforms thanks to release on PS4 and Xbox One. However, should MGS4 and Peace Walker come to modern platforms, it will mark the first time in history that Metal Gear Solid 4 was playable outside of its native platform, because it's only available on the PlayStation 3. I just said this. At one point during its development, Metal Gear Solid 4 Guns of the Patriots was running beautifully and smoothly on Xbox 360, according to its assistant producer. That's not true. That never happened. That guy's lying. And I tell you what, never mind. I'm not going to say that. What I will say is, if that's true, I don't know how aware Microsoft was of that. I would understand that they had 360 dev kits at Konami, but it is probably true. It is probably true. Actually, no, that makes sense. So I'm sorry. I have to, because I misspoke. That does make sense because Microsoft gets in the game with the Metal Gear Solid HD collection, because I actually own that. I own the 360 version of that in my Xbox library, and then Metal Gear Solid Guns of the Ground Zeroes and Phantom Pain come to Xbox consoles. So the relationship probably started with that. So that does make sense. I'm sorry. I was wrong, which is very, very few and far between. And then lastly, before we get into the big news, Sony will soon sell refurbished PS5 consoles at a reduced price. The PlayStation Direct Store will sell them for around $100 cheaper than a brand new console. So for the disc-based version, you would get it for $400 instead of $500. And for the digital, you'd get it, I guess, for $300 instead of $400. This is not a bad idea. If you're looking to get your kid a console for Christmas, this is not a bad idea. The PlayStation Direct site is now a section called Certified Refurbished, offering consoles and controllers at a reduced price. Refurbished consoles are pre-owned hardware, which has been returned to Sony for a variety of reasons. Be that because they were faulty or simply because they opened the box, changed their mind, and returned it for a refund, meaning it can no longer be sold as new. You can also get refurbs from GameStop, but GameStop needs to go out of business, so I would not recommend anybody going there. It is an absolute last ditch effort for me to go into a GameStop. I'm just being honest. As spotted by Push Square, the listings, which are currently marked as coming soon with no indication of a date, offer the refurbished PS5 with a disc drive for €389.99 and $399.99 US dollars. Again, that would be $400 when that console was $500 upon launch. This is a savings of €90, €90 or $100 on a brand new console with costs of €479 and $499.99 on the same store. According to Sony, a refurbished PS5 is extensively cleaned, tested, and ready for a brand new home with PlayStation quality 100% guaranteed. You will receive a product that works like new with the genuine PlayStation replacement parts as needed that has been thoroughly cleaned, inspected, and tested, Sony says. If you have a PlayStation 5 and you have the launch one where you can pull the plates off, I would urge you to do that at least twice a year, every 6 months. Even if you don't have roaches, anybody who had a PlayStation 4 will tell you that the fan in there, it got really hot, and roaches love that. So if you opened up a PlayStation 4, you're going to find a bunch of dead roaches, and I'm not fucking kidding you. I don't have roaches. Not saying my neighbors don't, but I don't have roaches. I opened up the plates on one of my PlayStation 5s, and there was like a dead spider or something in there. They go in there for the heat. So take your plates off and clean your console is all I'm saying. I've not seen the innards of any of my Xbox consoles, thankfully. This is not a bad idea, though. All certified refurbished will come with necessary accessories, cables, and manuals, and are packaged in their brand-owned certified refurbished packaging. A 12-month warranty is also included with every refurbished console, which Sony says may have minor cosmetic imperfections. The news follows Sony announcements of its PlayStation 5 Pro console, which will cost $699 when it's released on November 7th. That's right, $700. And we have made it to the final part of the show, and this is what I would like to call Derrick Explains. So here's the thing. This is a high-end premier console for a very, very serious gamer. Somebody who takes this very, very seriously. If you don't know the difference between 30 frames per second or 60 frames per second, I would say this is not for you. If your wallet cannot support it, I would also say this is not for you. My wallet cannot support it. And that's why I'm in touch with some people, with some other people, directly at PlayStation. Because I do want to get my hands on one of these things. And for the unboxing, if nothing else, right? For all the people online who are like, you can build a PC for $700. Not a good one. Not a good one. I'm telling you that right now. It took me, like, I'm not going to tell you, but I will give you the price of my PC, right? And I'm not going to tell you that money was not all spent at one time. My PC cost $2,000 to build, all told. And that wasn't all done at one time. So anybody who knows me, they're like, I can't believe you spent $2,000. Hey, brother, that's not how it went down. I want you to know that. That's not how it went down. You're not getting a high-end gaming PC for $700 that can run Grand Theft Auto, Red Dead Redemption, NBA 2K, Madden, any of that shit at 4K 60 like the PlayStation 5 Pro is going to do. You're just not. That's not a reality. Stop letting people lie to you. All right? Don't let these fucking goobers tell you, no, this is how it happens, because that ain't how it fucking happens. You're talking to somebody who has a bachelor's of computer science. So if anybody knows, this motherfucker knows, all right? You can't do that. So, again, Sony announced the PlayStation 5 Pro, worst kept secret in gaming. We knew this thing was coming. We knew once they made a Pro console the last generation, they were going to do that this generation as well. That's just the way it goes. The PlayStation 4 Pro sold somewhere between 10 to 15 million units of the 117 million PlayStation 4s that were sold the last time I checked, which was like March or something, if I remember correctly, right? So of those 117, 120, whatever, like 10 to 13 million of those were PlayStation 4 Pros. You're going to find the same thing here with the PlayStation 5 Pro. The main reason is because of the price. Because if it wasn't $700, everybody would love to have one. That's just the long and short of it. I think it's very strange the way it's been handled in the media. I understand the price is an issue, and that's why I brought up the double SKU of the PlayStation 3 earlier, because, again, it was 2006, and they're like $500, and then $600 for this version. And when I slept on the floor of the Walmart Garden Center in Warrenton, Missouri, and came home with a pre-order for a PlayStation, my mother was like, "How the hell could you spend $1,000 on that?" And I'm like, "It wasn't $1,000. It was $600." And she's like, "They said on the news it was 1,000." I'm like, "Ma, that's not how it goes. Those are people scalping them on eBay." But my mother does not listen. She thinks she knows everything. God bless you, Miss Pichelle. Mrs. I'm sorry. God bless you, Mom. Um, the fact of the matter is this: if you don't have the money, then yeah, you're in a position where you can be like, "This is stupid on Sony's part." Even if you do have the money, yeah, you can say you're in a position to say this is stupid on Sony's part because they don't have any games to take advantage of it. Imagine if you could play Final Fantasy VII, where you don't have to choose fidelity or performance mode, or where you can play The Last of Us Part Two Director's Cut, where you don't have to choose between performance or fidelity, right? That's the point of this console. There's no sacrifices. Because on the launch PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Series X, and damn sure the Xbox Series S, well, I don't even know if Xbox gives you the option. You can on certain games. You like if you play Madden, right? It's not gonna ask you when the game pops up. At least it didn't when I played this year's Madden. I don't remember. You have to go into the visual settings and choose whether you want performance or if you want fidelity, right? If you care about graphics and you want the game to pop and you want to see the crowd off of fucking Saquon Barkley's Eagles helmet, which makes me puke, then you're going to go with fidelity. But you're going to be playing at 30 frames per second, so the running back ain't going to hit those holes exactly clean. You do not want to play a first-person shooter in fidelity mode. And I don't even think they offer it. They may offer that on the campaign of Call of Duty, but not on the multiplayer, because you want the most frames per second because a motherfucker can clip you that quick. That's how that works. How do I feel about this? Well, it's interesting. So, Destin Legary, who's a shill for Microsoft at IGN, sat down with John Linneman of Digital Foundry, and they had a bit of a conversation. So apparently, Digital Foundry says it is going to be extremely challenging to hit 60 frames per second for GTA 6 on the PlayStation 5 Pro. Sony has officially unveiled the PlayStation 5 Pro, a powerful console with a hefty price tag. It's so expensive that it has immediately started turning gamers off, but it has been suggested that it's by design, as the console will typically be marketed towards enthusiasts and not casual gamers, which is true. With the lack of games on the horizon, talk has turned to GTA 6 being the only title that would sway people to invest in a PlayStation 5 Pro. However, in a recent interview with Digital Foundry, it was suggested that even the might of the PS5 Pro wouldn't be enough to push GTA 6's frame rate up to 60 frames per second. Quote, "It's a CPU problem. It has almost been a year since the first Grand Theft Auto 6 trailer was released, and fans are patiently waiting for another update. When the trailer was published in December of 2023, it broke viewership records, but then Rockstar Games was plunged back into silence and shadow, setting about completing what might be the fastest-selling game ever." Following the reveal of the PlayStation 5 Pro, IGN sat down with Digital Foundry to grill tech experts on the expectations of the console running GTA 5. To that end, Richard Ledbetter, the technology editor at Digital Foundry, said, "Grand Theft Auto games have always run complex simulations that push the CPU hard, which is why every GTA game has initially launched on their target platforms at 30 frames per second or lower. PS5 Pro uses the same CPU as the PS5, and it would be extremely challenging to hit 60 frames per second if the base PS5 version is targeting 30 FPS. This isn't a GPU problem, it's a CPU problem." And he's right. It is the same CPU that's in the launch and in the PS5 Slim. I think it's overclocked, but it is the same. It's the same actual CPU. The GPU is stronger, the CPU is not. Of course, all bets are off if Rockstar is targeting 60 frames per second on the standard PS5. We see no evidence so far to suggest it is. Rockstar Games always tries to produce living, breathing worlds in Grand Theft Auto, and what we've seen from the development of GTA 6 suggests that the concept will be taken to epic proportions. We can expect intensely realistic AI behavior, the type which leads to random encounters and unique events occurring around every turn. I want to pause right here. I want you to pull out your phone or your iPad or your MacBook or your laptop, whatever, or even on your TV. Go to YouTube and pull up the Grand Theft Auto 6 trailer. And when they get to the beach, look at how many people inhabit the beach there. You see one guy taking pictures of a girl. You see people doing TikToks. You see dogs. You see a guy rubbing like suntan lotion on a girl. All of those NPCs That's why they have to target 30 frames per second, because they're all doing something in real time. And at 60 frames per second, you have to have extremely powerful hardware to not bog it down. And that's what he's talking about here. The PlayStation 5's Pro's boost and power will inevitably make the games look better and run more smoothly, and the 8K capabilities are sure to be linked on by some more high-end developers. Number one, I'm going to tell you this. I worked for the nation's largest eye care provider for 4 years. The human eye cannot see in 8K. Do not let people fool you. You can buy 8K TV if you want to. It's not going to look any different. The human eye cannot see 8K. Just telling you guys that right off the fucking bat. Now, is it a deal breaker for you if GTA 6 doesn't run at 60 frames per second on the PS5 Pro? No, because even if it hits like 45, it's still good. 45 is still better than 30. Last time I checked. I don't know. That's just simple math, ladies and gentlemen. That is simple fucking math. The long and short of this is, again, if you don't want the PlayStation 5 Pro, that's perfectly fine. As of right now, I don't have my hands on one. It's not, well, nobody does because it's not out till November 7th. I don't have a definitive way to get my hands on one. But I have been in touch with some people who know some people up at Sony. Hey, Mark, how are you? So I hope to get one. And if I do, I will give you guys an unboxing, whether it's on YouTube, Patreon, or even Instagram or something. I want people to see this thing. When it comes down to the PlayStation 5 Pro, though, all this conjecture and, like, I can build a PC for that. You could. You're not going to do anything. You're going to struggle to play fucking Fortnite on that PC if it's $700. People think they can just jump out there and it's like, oh, I saw a gaming PC for $800. I'm going to buy it. No, don't do that. Don't do that. If you're buying it for a kid who doesn't know any better, that's one thing. But also, when you go to buy games for the PC, they will show you the recommended specs. And if you don't have at least the baseline of what they recommend, you can't run that game. So for everybody on their PC master race bullshit, that's a wake-up call. Again, I have a bachelor's of computer science. Who would know other than this fucking guy, right? Now, I don't write code because there's so many different game engines. Unreal is like one of the basic ones, right? Unreal Engine 4, Unreal Engine 5, which a lot of developers seem to be having problems with. And then you have studios who have their own engines. Rockstar has their own proprietary engine. It's called the Rage engine. Guerrilla Games has the Decima engine, which Horizon Zero Dawn and Horizon Forbidden West were built in. And then when Kojima, made his deal with Sony, they just told him, like, hey, any engine from any of our developers, you just pick the one you want. And he ended up using the Decima engine for Death Stranding as well. I forget what the name of the engine is that Naughty Dog uses. I know Bethesda is still using the Creation engine, and they've been using that since like the 360 and the PS3 generation, which will be 20 years next year. The Xbox 360 came out November 22nd of 2005. We are a year away from that. Bethesda is using the same engine they were using when the Xbox 360 launched. 20 fucking years. Abandon it. Please abandon it. So, anyway, just time for Derrick to get serious. If you want a PlayStation 5 Pro, pre-orders will be available via PlayStation Direct and their retail partners on September 26th. The retail partners being Amazon, Target, Best Buy, I don't think Walmart. I'm going to give you guys a little game, so I want you to pay attention. Pull out your notepad on your phone or write this down. Do your pre-order through Amazon, because they're not going to run your card until it's time for the console to ship. What you can do is go to your local Walgreens or CVS or wherever and buy Amazon gift cards and keep applying those to that balance. And you'll have it paid off by November 7th if you do it the right way. Just some free game for you. But yeah, I think that $700 for what they were able to achieve. Technically, this is quite the leap for a mid-gen refresh. I think that's a discount. I'm just being completely honest with you. So I'm in favor of the PlayStation 5 Pro, and I'm also in favor of developers seeing their full vision play out, and this hardware will allow them to have their full vision play out. That's just me. Anyway, that's all the time I got for you guys. I'm going to end this like I end everything else. Of course, believe in yourself first and foremost, because if you don't believe in yourself, of course, nobody else will believe in you. As always, my name is Derrick Lamon Jackson, and that is my time. Y'all have a good one. Peace out.